The Dershow.
Sotomayor wrote her dissenting opinion as if there was no argument, conceivable argument, other than a political one. And, it raises the question, would these three justices have been as strongly opposed to immunity if the person being given the immunity were President Clinton? The Bible says, Lo takir ponim, do not recognize faces. Don't do justice based on who the person is. That's why you have to wear that blindfold. Blindfolded justice comes from the Torah, from the book of Deuteronomy, and its instructions to judges and prosecutors. Do not recognize faces. And what we're seeing over and over and over again is judicial decisions based on the recognition of faces, both majority opinions and dissenting opinions. The most absurd argument made by Sotomayor was that the Nixon case proves that a president can be tried for a crime because President Ford pardoned Nixon and Nixon accepted the pardon. First of all, that's nonsense. You don't accept a pardon. A pardon is given. It doesn't have to be accepted. It's an act of faith. There's nothing that has to be accepted. But it was accepted. So what? He didn't want to be prosecuted, so of course he accepted it. That doesn't mean that he agreed or the government agreed that a criminal prosecution would have been proper. It's just not clear. And in that case, there were lines, obviously, and actions that Nixon took fell on both sides of the lines. Take, for example, the situation with President Clinton. He could have been charged, probably, certainly could be sued, and he was sued. But he could have been sued also, and perhaps charged with some crime for having sex in the Oval Office with Monica Lewinsky. Now, was that a private act or a public act? Well, it was obviously a private act, but it took place in a public space, and it was against or with the consent of a young intern who was an employee paid by the government in the White House. So I think that would probably fall on the private side of the private-public continuum. But there are other cases that would be difficult. And that's the function of the law, to make decisions in difficult cases. And if I were a judge, and I never wanted to be a judge, but if I ever were a judge, I would start all my opinions by laying out the arguments on both sides and indicating that I think there's merit to some of the arguments on the other side, but that in my judgment, on balance, those arguments don't prevail. I wish more judges would do that.